So this is part 2. The ship
My
does
name is Don.
undocked.
That's Captain Rich.
And
Our bartender is
and
Kayla.
now
She's
look at
running
that.
for 2023
Now
Bartender of the Year
we're
award, so we've got a lot of points. Alrighty, I am your only grain miller on this cruise line. I've worked here at General Mills.
so mini cruise line. Yeah,
Down
yeah,
here
yeah.
for
Mini cruise line.
15 years and went out to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and finished a 40-year career with General Mills. So I've had a lot of work.
Captain.
Cedar Rapids, go Iowa. Clones. Off to your left-hand side, folks, this is the commercial slip. And that what attaches the Erie Canal to the Buffalo River and the Lake Erie. It's about 150 yards long. And that was completed in 1825. So those bricks and blocks you see along the side, they've been there since that long. And those ruins you see as you go over that walking bridge on our right-hand side, that is part of a ship's chandlery. The ship's chandlery is kind of like the Home Depot or Lowe's for boats and barges, much like our Spirit of Buffalo. She's a little bit smaller. She's about 70 feet. The boats that came in here were well over, sometimes over 100 feet, bringing in all the grain and coal and all the products from the Midwest. Well, if this is the end of the Erie Canal, and you're going to be with me for 90 minutes, don't jump overboard. You're going to miss the whole story. So, Erie Canal started in 1817. It was all dug by hand, 4 foot deep, 40 feet wide, 363 miles long. And you're asking yourself, why do we do such a silly thing like that? Well, it goes further back in history, because we're going to talk about 200 years of history, and the importance and significance of Buffalo with Erie Canal and the Great Lakes. Well, 1803 we had the Louisiana Purchase, more than double the size of the United States. Thomas Jefferson wanted to fill up that new area with farmers and all kinds of population. There's only one problem, folks. Where we just left here, it would take us 7 weeks, $100 a ton, to move your product from Buffalo to New York. There was just a few Indian trails, no McDonald's, very tough traveling.
Wow.
And then 90% of the population lived east of the Allegheny Mountains. We had to get those people over to the Midwest. We had to get those farmers planting their crops. Well, there was a man in 1805, Jesse Hawley. He was a farmer in central New York, and he planted his grain, and he took his grain and flour to Albany. He complained the whole business on a word of good news. He wrote a letter to Thomas Jefferson saying, we need a canal, we gotta make prices cheaper. Well, so much in 1806 he's in debtor's prison, couldn't pay his bills. And he writes 13 to 16 essays under the name of Hercules, and publishing in the local newspapers. A man, Joshua Foreman, who's good friends with Mr. DeWitt Clinton, who's mayor of New York City. And he says, hey, DeWitt, this guy's got a great idea. We could open up the all the western frontier, and New York would be the best state in the Union. Well, he tells Mr. Foreman to go up to Albany and get some money from Albany, and he does. So he gets Jesse Geddes, who was a surveyor, to plot out one of the many canals through New York. Well, those three men get together. They're in New York City, and they're hashing it out. What can we do, and how are we going to pay for it? And DeWitt Clinton says, hey, go to Washington and get some money. That's always easy, right? Well, they go to Washington, and they got shot down. Mr. Jefferson's administration says, nah, we're ahead of your time. Yeah, we don't have the technology to build this canal. And besides, it's New York State's problem. Well, they go back to New York City, and they're moping around, and guess what? It's 1812. What happened in 1812? Well, we were at war with the British again. Of course, they're just across the river, just across the lake over in Canada. So much that the British did come over to Buffalo Creek here and burnt the whole city down, except for one little house. And they went to Lewiston, which is about 20 miles north of here. And they burnt that whole little town down, except for that one bar on Main Street, because that's where all the officers used to go after a heavy day of soldiering. Well, by 1816, they settled their differences, they kiss and make up, we're friends with the Canadians and the British again, and we're starting thinking about this canal. Well, in doing so, let me catch my... I hate when my mind goes blank. Rich? Yeah, I'm just gone blank. Okay, in doing so, all right, I know, I'm on track, guys. It's 1817. all right? There was a special election in New York, and all of us New Yorkers, how many people are from New York here? We all voted in that election in 1870. We voted for DeWitt Clinton, and he wins. He's governor of New York. He wants to stop those naysayers, that Clinton did, Clinton followed, that guy's a nut. Well, he wins that election. And July 1st, 1817, he is sworn in to be your governor. I promise to be your governor. It's 3 days later, it's July 4th, 1817, America's birthday. What a better day than start digging the nation's canal. There in Rome, New York, they start digging this canal, 4 foot deep, 4 feet wide, 362 miles long. They go west of Syracuse, east over to Utica. They open up the canal, they start charging tolls, new in New York at that time, and they sell bonds, because this canal is going to roughly cost $6.5 million. Ends up costing 7.1. Well, it's all but paid for by the bonds and the tolls that are charged. Well, when they start digging this canal, they know where it's going to start. Okay, Albany, we all know that, on the Hudson. But they didn't know where it's going to end. Because there's 2 villages on the western frontier, and we were the western frontier at that time. We had a village of Black Rock. Now, if you go down to 190, go underneath that Peace Bridge, you're going to see a Black Rock just on your side, just past the Massachusetts pumping station. Look quick, because it's very small. But that went 200 feet out in the Lake Niagara River. And then we had the Buffalo Creek. Buffalo Creek was about 4 foot deep, 17 feet wide. You put a canoe on it and you go virtually nowhere. So we had a man, Sam Wilkins, Justice of the Peace, a businessman. He put his head together with other businessmen and says, if we get a canal here, we're going to have a great chance of being a successful city. Well, they devised a plan where they'll dig out Buffalo Creek into a nice big river. They're going to make a nice big harbor, and we're going to get the end of the canal. They go to Albany and they convince DeWitt Clinton, and guess what? 1825, where we just left, we got the end of the Erie Canal, and everything starts moving from then on. All those immigrants on the East Coast, world, and all those settlers on the East Coast start coming down the Erie Canal. They stop here, some go out to the Midwest. Those farmers plant crops. They used to send them down the Mississippi. Take 3-4 months to get all the way over to New York, Boston, or Philadelphia. We had hurricanes and all kinds of nasty stuff along there. But let's bring it right back to the end of Lake Erie. And we put in those barges, so the barges could all go all the way down to New York City. Well, that worked. So much that by 1830, Buffalo now is a clog in a wheel. We had so many boats and barges sitting in this river, in this lake area, we could not load those boats fast enough. It would take a whole day to unload 1,000 bushels of grain. It would take a whole week to unload 7,000 bushels. Well, in 1842, we have this haberdasher, a guy that made hats, Mr. Joseph Dart, and he got together with an engineer, Mr. Robert Dunbar. They developed the first steam-powered elevator. Now, an elevator is a structure right next to the boat, right on the dock, and they can empty that boat out 1,000 bushels an hour. That just totally revolutionized that whole system. So much by 1850, Buffalo is the major grain milling and flour transfer city in the world for the last well over a century. And you know why? They hadn't figured out how do you get over Niagara Falls. That's why we are very important. More to come on that. Over on the right-hand side, that blue and gray building, is a little bit of warehouse, not very impressive. They have a lot of cereal eater guys. But then in 1939 through 1941, they built this brick cereal plant along with the 3 flour mills across the street. Well, in 1941, General Mills decides we're tired of eating oatmeal, aren't we, guys? Yeah, oatmeal. Bring a week. They come up with a cereal, and it's called Cheerios. It's shot from guns. I was a gunner. I can put the O's in your Cheerios, believe it or not. So, Quaker Oats says, you can't call it oats. We only name the oats. They negotiate, relitigate, how the lawyers go, and they change the name of that Cheerios to Cheerios. It becomes the #1 best-selling cereal worldwide. Unfortunately, folks, it's dropped down to #2, #1 in the United States, but 2 worldwide, overtaken by this other cereal. This other cereal, very similar, and do you have any guesses? And I don't want to hear Kellogg's or Post cereals. Honey Nut Cheerios is now the #1 best-selling cereal worldwide. And in 1974, I was on the 9th floor and I was pouring 5-gallon buckets of honey into a funnel that mixed up with our Cheerios batter that we could make little honey nut Cheerios. That was my job. They have 4 cereal systems over here now. They do Cheerios 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. They make Honey Nut Cheerios, they make Chex Cereals, and they make your Lucky Charms. You smell that wonderful smell? My city smells like Cheerios. You know what my t-shirt says? My city smells like my pension. Yeah, I had over 40 years in this place. Okay, on the left-hand side, we have the Edward M. Cotter. She is the world's oldest active fireboat in the world. She has 5 water cannons, shoots 125 feet in the air, 15,000 gallons a minute. She started work, again, a little bit before I did in 1900, but she's still active. She's fire engine number 20 for the city of Buffalo. She goes out for ice-breaking duties, and she'll go out and shoot her water cannons for dignitaries out in the outer harbor. Other than that, she sits over there. On the right-hand side, we have some silos. Now, when I talk about silos and elevators, I kind of mix them back and forth. Normally, you cannot have a silo without an elevator and vice versa. So if I say elevator, you know I'm talking about silos too. Those silos over there built in 1911 by Mr. Kellogg. Nothing to do with Kellogg's of Battle Creek, but Kellogg's of Buffalo. He had the world's largest linseed oil press. He was in competition with all that good tasting cod liver oil that we used to take when we were kids. Well, it's been sold numerous times. It was Schaefer Brewing, and then now it's Hope Rising, a nonprofit organization. They also own these other 4 silos over here, and it's owned by the St. Mary Cement Company. And between number 3 and number 4, and as soon as you get up a little farther, you can see a spiral staircase, which we consider the tallest spiral staircase in the city of Buffalo. So someone in their great physical shape like me could go all the way to the top, check the dust collector or the definite cement when the electronics don't work. Trust me, I don't go up there. In 1929, Canadian American farmers got together. They bought a grain transfer location here, and they called it GLF, Grain League Federation. Well, that finally ended up, and it became an eyesore. So now we have Riverworks. It's repurposed. We have 2 ice rinks over there. We have a road course on the top of the roof over there. And for you young ladies, put your roller skates on because we have the only flat surface roller derby track for the Queen City Roller Girls. But we have 2 restaurants, 4 bars, lots of entertainment, lots of fun and music. And if it wasn't so inclement, they'd have people sitting all along there, enjoying the river. And here we have the world's largest 6-pack of Labatt's Blue, freshly repainted a couple of years ago. It's not full of brew, but they do have craft brewery over here. So you get yourself a nice craft brew or any kind of little bit of refreshment. You can sit on those Adirondack chairs in front of Beer Henge, which is nothing but the basement portion of all your silos. That's how they start. The basement, then you build on the top, you put silos. But they took the silos off, they put a Ferris wheel up there, and there's a bungee drop. And then over on the side of the wall in the back loading house, you see a yellow Bronco. And there's 2 platforms. Because you zip line all the way over the back of Indiana Jones over to the silos here at zip line in the Shark's Mouth. 3 years ago, there was an escape room, so all the parents would be able to take their kids to the escape room, drop them off. You could spend 3 hours with Riverworks, and then come back and get your kids. They're still there. They didn't escape. They didn't go anywhere. I have no idea why they got rid of it, but okay. I have a little question for everybody, my audience. How many people here have had your genes tested, had gene tests for some reason or another? Okay, you? Anybody else? You? Okay. Did your doctor talk to you about that special gene that we all have? Yes? No? You know what it is? It's the wave gene. Because what if you want to vote? And we haven't had much opportunity today. You're going to vote. What do you do? You're unsure. Hi. Did anybody teach you how to wave? You got different ways of doing it, but no one really taught you, right? That's a gene that we all have in our bodies. It's the wave gene. You tell your doctor, your physician, that Dr. Don says, I got a wave gene. You want to know where it is. On your right-hand side, we have this big, large building. It's called ADM, Archer, Daniel, and Midland. And they're a very large agricultural firm in the United States. They have plants throughout. They have big silos. They came in the early 1970s. They weren't the first ones over there. The first owners built that flour mill, which has the largest flour milling floor, and they were so proud of my flour mill over there. They put their initials on that building. To the top left and right hand corners, you're going to see a blue circle with a white P to use for Pillsbury. They came in 1923. They sold in the early 70s to ADM. But both companies were getting their grain from the Great Northern. Unfortunately, they tore down the Great Northern, which was nothing but 48 steel silos encased in brick. 2.5 million bushels of grain, largest in the world, in 1897. Well, it has another distinction. That's a party boat. That's 70 something. I'll let you know a little secret. You're happy you're on this boat, you have 2 Marine heads. Those people are celebrating. You know, when you see that boat again, they're going to be dancing. I'm just warning you. All right, back to the Great Northern. It sits on Gansett Street. Gansett Street was the first street in the city of Buffalo that had AC electric current. Buffalo had electric streetlights in 1881, but they were DC current. Mr. Nikola Tesla and Mr. Westinghouse were in Niagara Falls. They were testing how far we can send electric AC current down the line. And they got all the way here where ADM was. So they had electric motors. That's safer than the steam engine and the steam silos. On the left-hand side, we see a building over here. It is called River Landings. I can't remember that name for the right now. River Landings came in about 2015, but it sits on a spot where we had the Erie Freight House.
That's my birthday.
Erie Railroad built this freight house right on the river. They had to load the boats, put it on their rail cars, ship it out of town. We sit less than a mile from the east end of Lake Erie, and if you're from Buffalo, we have Lake Effect Hospital. It just takes all that warm lake air for the cold Canadian air, makes snow, bumps right here. Their roof collapsed numerous times. Finally, the city of Buffalo says, you know, we've got to tear it down. It's a danger. It's zero. So they tore it down. They told an architect, build a building that looks old, so it's rusty. And then they made it 4 stories like it was a manufacturing facility. And then they put 72 apartments in there. 68 are single bedroom apartments starting at $1,200 a month. Your double bedrooms start at $2,200 to $2,900 a month. But you are happy when you pay your rent. You're almost giddy. Because you're buying history. Because on an 1865 warehouse that was built, they saved the wood. So your floors, your moldings, and the beams in some of your apartments all come from that 1865 warehouse. So you're happy you buy history. All right, we've only been down this river a very short period, and you're probably wondering,
Across the bridge.
Floor milling and all the elevators that we hear in stories. Well, in our height, heydays, 30s, 40s, and 50s, we had over 50 elevators lining this river. We're down to 13. Only 4 are being used. General Mills has the one that has a big gold medal on the side. And then we have the St. Mary's. Off to your left, we have the standard elevator. And then to your right, in the front, we have the Huron Cement Elevator Company. They came in the late 1920s. They sold to Lafarge Cement Company. Now it's Holcim Cement Company. And all those cement companies would bring their cement in on a big ship called the Argonaut. Okay, Rich, we're all set. Now, the Argonaut's 443 feet long, and she sits out in Lake Erie. The tugboats go out, turn her around, so she comes in the Buffalo River stern first. And they put her right against the Ohio Street Bridge. She sucks the cement out through the black hoses. That's a pneumatic system. So they just hook it up to the side of the boat. Just suck all the cement out. And when that boat is empty, that boat goes out of Buffalo, bow first. You're not turning 443 feet in Lake Erie in this river. There's only one spot. I'm going to show it to you later. Rule of thumb, you're a lake captain. You come in bow first, you're going out stern first. You come in stern, you're going out bow. That's just the way it is. Okay, we have entered Silo City. Mr. Rick Smith purchased Silo City. He just wanted to expand his rigidized metal company. We ended up buying all his property. Off to your right, we see silos. You may think they're all round, but that is nothing but a large rectangle, and just the outsides are curved. and they're steel. And then he put concrete on the outside because he wanted to look like everybody in the neighborhood. I mean, this is Elevator Alley, in case you're following me on Google Maps. Well, that was built in the 1930s, and it was just an annex to the original electric elevator built in 1897. They've torn that down, and Mother Nature has come back and put all these trees and grass and stuff over here because that was not there when we were hard at work. Mr. Smith sold these other two buildings. The one in the back, this big building, that used to be a flour mill. It was built in 1922. PB Flour Company was there. ConAgra was the last ones. This red building here came in 1906, the American Malting Company. He has sold these two buildings to a developer, and he's making 165 moderately priced apartments, whatever that is. And his directive to these developers: do what you want with the inside. Put a flat screen TV, you can put a microwave if you want. But you leave the outside the way it is. This is Buffalo's history. This is a living history. This is what made Buffalo, Buffalo. So we don't want to destroy it. And then you see these white silos with that nice fish and turtle on the side. They were built in 1906. And they were the first ones built anywhere in the world. It is reinforced concrete slip form construction continuously poured process. And they're still made that way today. They were explosion proof. They were fireproof. The wooden ones burn up and catch on fire a lot, so that wasn't very good. The second ones were steel. They're pretty good, not really great. But these concrete ones are the best. On the right-hand side, we have two structures, and you can see them on the rest of our elevators as we go down the river. They're called marine towers. In the center of those marine towers, there is screen doors, at least on these are screen doors, but inside that screen door is what they call a marine leg. It's kind of like a big elephant's trunk, because if I was a marine tower, I'd bring out my big marine leg and slip it into the hull of the ship. And you can see blue and white buckets right in the center there. They'd start that conveyor belt up, and that's when they start emptying the grain. First one was built in 1906. They put it right on the dock. So those grain freighters would come in, they empty out that hull, and they got the scoopers that jump in the boat and scoop the sides down. But then you got to move the whole boat. 1833, they said, hey, let's put it on railroad wheels. So now they tie the ship up once, and you move that whole structure up and down the whole dock. Productivity back in the 1930s. Straight to that off to your right, you see a checkerboard building. That is the old International Flour Mill. They used to put flour out. Of course, most of our flour, 90% of all the grain that came into Buffalo got shipped out of Buffalo, but just the 10% that stayed here, we made a lot of flour and stuff. But the International Flour Mill would put their flour in bulk trucks, but they'd also put it out in retail flour called Robin Hood Flour. Now this other red building here just to your right is the Perot Malting Company, right next to their competitors, the American Malting Company. They came in 1907, and they continued to malt until 1962. They sold it to Cook's Brewery in Dunkirk, and also in Genesee Beer in Rochester. So if you had a Genesee or Cook's Brewery up until 1993, I would say that your malt beverages came from right this area. This is one of the largest malting areas in the United States because we're so centrally located. The Midwest with barley in the center, and out east where people are drinking a lot of malt beverages. This is the Lake and Rail. And the structure you see on the side with a long spout, this is where they would empty the grain that came in with lake freighters, and they would empty it into your barges and your canal boats. You get good old sail, get going. They go down to the Erie Canal. Now, this is built in 1926, and all our elevators have names. Company names, family names. They tell you what they do. In this case, Lake and Rail. Your grain comes in on lake freighters, and they're put on rail cars, Lake and Rail. Because your captains, when they got their directions and where to go, they didn't say, well, go to International Flour. They didn't know where that was, but they knew where the Lake and Rail was. As you can see on the side, you see our two marine towers. You can see a little bit better on the inside. Now, Mr. Rick Smith, who opened this up, or bought this area in 2005, is going to make ethanol, bring in grain and make
Okay.
ethanol.
Fine.
You all right?
Cheap gas.
Climb up here.
Well, that didn't work, did it? So we sold it to White Box Commodities. They're going to buy grain from our farmers out in Iowa.
Got it?
And
Set this down
bring
for a
it to the East
second.
Coast and sell it to the
Gotta have two
consumers
hands
at a
on
high
it.
price.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you, that didn't work either.
Turn it towards me.
In 2015, that
Keep going.
facility has been closed.
Keep going.
But
Keep
before they
turning.
closed it, they modernized
There you
it.
go. Keep turning.
Because our freighters are coming now to not use those marine towers.
See, look,
They were
stop there.
self-unloaders.
So now we're gonna turn it
Those
over.
500 to 600
Keep going a
foot
little bit more.
boat carriers. And the center of the ship has a big boom,
Don't start
like a
it.
big conveyor belt, which lifts up,
You're turning.
goes over to the side of the silos, and dumps it into that blue hopper.
Keep
And it
going.
goes to the basement, and we elevate it all the way to the top. So if you got a few bucks in your checking account, that's shovel ready, guys.
Let's see what that does.
I don't know what you're gonna use it for, but. Okay, inside look of Silo City. This is the largest collection of silos anywhere in the
So
world,
now we
still
need to
standing
straight.
in
So
one
turn it a
place.
little towards me.
In the center, we have Duende. That's a bar. Used to be an old administration
Windmills.
building. But that's barbers have food drinks, and they have great
Wanna take a
barbecue.
picture here? Should I
They
take a
have
video?
live music Fridays and
You
Saturday
can take a
nights.
picture. It's right
Open
there.
up like 4,
Yep.
4:30 in the afternoon.
Okay, you ready? Hold on to that.
And then next to it, we have Marine A, named after the
Oh,
Able
it's
family. 1925, but I'm sure you're not looking at that. You're looking at this nice, majestic boat. That's the Columbia. You're gonna get up here from Buffalo. You may say, "Hey, what is the old Crystal Beach boat?" No. Crystal Beach boat was years after
That's
that
good
boat
right
was
there.
built. That was the Columbia, but she was called the Boblo boat.
You ever
because She
driven
went
a
over to
boat
Boblo Island in Canada, which was an amusement park, no less. Well, we'll talk about the Boblo boat on our way back.
Keep going,
She has a
keep
great
going.
history to her. Now, on Fridays, Saturdays, except for today, and Sunday tomorrow, we offer silo tours. And I
That's
take
good,
my
that's good
group
right
of guests and we walk all
Little
the way
more,
through
little
Silo
more.
City. I take you into the multi-house, I take you into the basements over there. And it's great
That's good,
architecture.
that's good.
And if you
Now
like it,
back
have
towards
urban
me.
artists.
Let me have it
a
for
lot
a
of
quick
good
second.
artists
Just a
in
quick
there.
second.
That's enough of that ad. Whew. It's warm in here, Rick. Turn the air conditioning on. Okay, we're going down the Buffalo River, and again, both sides are pretty much barren, even though we did have a lot of elevators, which they have torn down. Your right-hand side is kind of a natural river bank. Over on your left-hand side, we're going to come up to what is
A little
called
bit this way.
Japanese knotweed. It's a very evasive
That's good. That's good.
weed, I call it. With a big
Little
bush.
more to the left.
It has roots about 27 feet deep, so it holds the bank together because when the ice flows down here during the spring, it tears the bank up.
Yeah.
But
Are you
it
done?
kills all
You
the
don't
natural
have to keep driving if
vegetation.
you don't want to. You want to take a
I mean, you
video?
would have banks looking like that on the
Wanna
right.
do a video?
But now you have
Towards
this,
me.
it looks nice, but
Like,
it
why are you
kills
doing
the
a
trees
video?
and all the natural
What?
vegetation.
Why are you doing a video?
Right
Now,
now?
if you were to Google that, Japanese
Oh.
knotweed, they said, well, you can use it like rhubarb in the spring. Or some lady told me 3 weeks ago, hey, I
All right, I'll take
use
over.
it just
Thank
like
you.
asparagus. I also read that it's good for monarch butterflies coming down August, September, because they just fly down here on their way to Florida, and they take that little nectar off the flowers and on their way.
Just climb the Yes, I got to drive the boat. I got to drive the boat for a little bit.
Not as good as Cuyahoga River in Cleveland. They take their winter bath. You know, we have all these lake rigs coming down here. Of course, they empty their bilge water, and heaven knows where the bilge water comes from. And they would just dump that out. And they had these big smokestacks coming out of the boats, and they dump all that coal ash in this river. Early 1960s, around 1962, give or take a year, they were doing some repair on a bridge further up the river, and a hot nose slag hit the river and guess what? EPA says now, Now, if you go by
We'll go up
silos
top,
here,
because then the window becomes
take
the
a
other way.
special look at the side of those silos. Every 6 inches, you're gonna see stripes all the way up, markings, all the way up, horizontal markings, all the way from the bottom, where beer head was, all the way to the top. Now, I would like you to think of a 6-pack of refreshment. Let's say you have 6 cans. And think of those cans as bigger silos. Well, around each silo you have a frame, a mold sort of, and it's about 6 inches wide, all around each 6 there. And you put rebar in there because cement alone will not stand up. So you pour your concrete in there. You're going to wait an hour because it's going to heat up, take air bubbles out, and then you're going to take all 6 of those molds and slip them up. And you're going to put more concrete in there. Wait an hour. You're going to slip them up. Every frame up. That's 125 feet. How high is our fireboat shoot water? 125 feet. You gotta put that fire up and it's not going down. So it's gonna take you 10 days, 10 hours to build those silos. Being concrete, you can do it all year round. Where your steel and wood, you have to just do it during the construction season. See? And the last set we have over there are very large, and they were built in 1925. And do I have any contractors here? Any guys that work with concrete? All right. Now I've been told a little story that concrete has to cure. So when you have your driveway put in, they go, "Hey, Mr. Dyko, your driveway's done." Don't use it for 2 to 3 weeks. What are they going to need driveway for? You got to wait for it to cure. That building, that structure was built in 1925. It's going to be totally cured the year 2025. Now some of those structures are 24, 18 inches thick. You know, I tell you about the Huron cement elevator? They have to tow the boat in and out, stern or bow first. This is the only spot in Buffalo River you can turn your freighters around. During the height of our shipping season, we have upwards to 50 freighters coming down the Buffalo River. Not all the way down this far, but off to your east. We had Republic Steel, we had an oil refinery, a chemical company. Those boats would come in bow first all the way down the river. When they unloaded their taconite or their iron ore and your coal and your oil products, they'd have to get out of Buffalo. They had to get a tugboat, and a tugboat would have to drag them all the way here. They put the stern of the boat to the far east corner and the bow of the boat here, and then they can go to Buffalo all by themselves. Only place you can turn those 600-footers around. All right, we have 2 structures over here. The first one's a standalone grain tower. You could empty a boat, actually put it on wheels because you're putting all the grain out of the boat into a rail car. This whole facility here would load out 80 rail cars a day. Now this is Concrete Central, the largest elevators here in the city of Buffalo. In fact, in the world at one time. We have 3 marine towers. We could unload 3 lake freighters at a time into 268 silos, holding 4.5 million bushels of grain. Well, it was built in 1917 and 1919, and they were working very hard. You would work in the basement or the top section. Now, the population of the United States in 1900 was 103 million people. Let's just say that I'm going to fill this up all 4.5 million bushels of grain, wheat grain. I'm going to send it to my favorite miller, and he's going to make flour, and I'm going to send it to my favorite bakery, Wonder Bread, and we're going to make 170 million loaves of bread. We can feed every man, woman, and child in the United States, Canada, and parts of Europe. And the reason I mention that is because during World War I and World War II, our whole Buffalo River area here was protected by the U.S. Army or the National Guard because we were feeding the world while the rest of the world's fighting. We were feeding them. So this is a very important place because if we destroyed this, we'd stop all the food going throughout the world. All right, we're going to turn around here real shortly. First, turn around. Shortly. I want everybody to take your tickets out, look at them. If you do not have a return, no, I'm only kidding. I get about that far. I asked you to check if you got a return ticket or else you'll be swimming back. Okay, straight dead ahead. Okay. Straight. That's low. Straight dead ahead we have another bridge. It's called a Bastille Bridge. And in French, anybody speak French? In French it means seesaw or teeter-totter. Because, as I mentioned, when they built this in 1917 and 1919, you lived on that side of the river. Nobody lived over on this side. In fact, there's no streets over there. The address for Concrete Central is 175 Buffalo River. But you're working over here in South Buffalo. You live in the First Ward area here. You got to get to work. There's no trains. There's no roads back there. You either got to swim across, take the water taxi. That's too expensive. Gosh, expensive. That's like a dime a day. So 60 cents a week. I make $12 a week. I owe $1 to the bartender who got me the job over here. Then when you go to the bar to cash your check, you got to buy a few drinks for your friends. You know. So, anyways, they would stand at the end of that bridge underneath that weight. And when we don't have any trains running through, and it's not up because we have at least 50 freighters coming into Buffalo a day, you're running over that bridge. They ran over that bridge to get to work over here, over at Cargill. Now, as you can see, a lot of our urban artists, we have people that come back here from 1966 on. They climb around here, they cause problems, they start fires. In fact, in 2015, they had to call out the Edward M. Cotter because you can't bring a fire truck back there, so the Cotter had to put the fire out from the water to the riverside. Now, in Buffalo, we have this unique phenomenon, I call it, and it's called the January thaws. And if you're in the northeast United States, I know in Iowa we have some of those at times when it gets above minus 30. Anyways, in Buffalo, January 21st, 1959, we had our second of 2 January thaws. The first one at the beginning of the month. Now this is 21st of January. And sitting over here, we have a 420-foot freighter called the McGilvery Shiras. She's wintering in Buffalo. Couldn't go to Florida for the winter, so she's sitting here waiting till March. Well, this river breaks up, so you got a lot of ice flowing down here, and you got a nice mild breeze, 45 degrees, and the current's going down here. Ice gets between that cement wall and the freighter, pops 32 mooring lines. Now this ship, with nobody on it, no lights on, is floating down this river all by herself. She's called a dead man ship. Just think of our little tour as we go. We have all these turns on this river, and she's floating by herself. Now, there's 2 more parts to our story. I'll get to them as we get to those parts of the river. But just think about our travels. On your right-hand side, we have mounds of brown, some light brown, and they come from the Buffalo Zoo. The darker brown is usually like tree, grass clippings, tree stems and stuff. Buffalo's making dirt. That's our compost area. Because they are taking the Buffalo River and they're tearing all the banks apart, taking out squatters' huts and taking out all the nasty knotweed, and they're putting this nice new soil around the river to make it a natural river bank. They take trees, they lay them on the side. You can't see them too much now because of all our greenery, but they chain them down along the banks of the river so that the river banks won't deteriorate. And they're sunk because we have trees in the water, and they have the root balls that throw around the bottom of the tree. They sink them in the water there so that the little fish can hide from the big fish now. And then they came and they planted indigenous trees and indigenous flowers. I call them weeds. My mother would be mad at me, but it's really flourishing now. And then as we make this turn going down the river, it's normally the windiest part of the river, because Lake Erie is straight dead ahead, Captain. We have a little sandy beach area. Well, this is the Buffalo Turtle Nursery. Because we have snapping turtles in here, and we have painted and box turtles, and they just waddle their way up and they get onto the beach area. And of course, the water's high today.
I didn't know turtles live in here.
But they plant their little turtle eggs there, and they get in the water. And we have little turtles there. Once in a while, you do see turtles on some of the logs in the water. So, oh, there's a deer. Yeah, you move by the tree. I was just gonna say we got a wildlife back here now. Well, we do have fox and of course obviously the deer. Cue the deer, please. Cue the deer. Animal Farm with Chevy Chase. All right, on the side of the river here we have pilings. Those pilings are well over 100 years old. And they serve a very important purpose on the Buffalo River. Because with all the freighters coming into Buffalo, they didn't want to sit in the outer harbor or even out in the lake because it's very windy out there and really rough water. And they want to get unloaded as quickly as possible. So those big freighters, 400 or 500 feet long, come down this river to here. They tie up on those pilings. And they wait for the ships to get unloaded at Cargill. 2 ships over there. 3 ships at Concrete Central. When they empty it out, the tugboats will take it empty out, and they come over here to the boat queue and take that full one out here and put it over to get unloaded. 20 minutes and you're unloading. Think of this little area of the river. Now we have lake freighters on your right, lake freighters on your left. They're 50 feet wide, and I have a 500-foot iron boat coming down this river. I'm 50 feet wide. There's not a whole lot of room for air coming down this Buffalo River. In fact, it's very, very difficult. A lot of little accidents, little bumps, little loose. Okay, I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to go upstairs. If you want to see Kayla, or go use the restroom, or you have a little question for me, I'll be more than happy to answer it. And then we're going to pick it up when we get to the Buffalo boat.
Let's go upstairs. Let's go upstairs.
So I think this is the upstairs. We're on the upper deck. Look at that. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. Whoa.
So where did it start? In Minneapolis, and then came up.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
And they headquartered there. But Washburn Crosby was the initial one.
Okay.
And they got together with numerous other mills. And of course, the corporate offices in Minneapolis. Yeah, there's a flour mill in here.
Okay, and then.
And they combined and it became General Mills. Yeah. Big G. You're welcome.
The air was warm, you know what I mean? If it was cold, I'd be like, oh boy.
Well, sure. Yeah, if you want to go upstairs, go ahead. It may be a little bit less, you know.
I cannot.
Going up the stairs, please.
Oh, it's so windy. The flag's going crazy. Oh! Whoa, I'm in a hurricane. Oh. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Oh. Ah, ah, ah. Oh, disaster. It's cold. It's so really windy in this part. I'm gonna go downstairs now, okay, Papa?
I'll be down with you.
Oh gosh. But I'm gonna come back up once again. See how he's doing. Just went upstairs for a little bit.
All right, Captain Rich is gone. I got to come back from break, so he knows I'm not union break.
Good. I went upstairs.
Up on your left-hand side up here, we got the Windy.
Yes.
Now, this tour boat
Did you take video up
was
there?
built in 1901.
Yes.
by
And
Mr.
it's
Fred
still
Kearney.
filming it.
He designed that boat, and it's special design because
This is like one of the longest videos I'm gonna make on my YouTube
which
channel.
allowed them to have 3 decks. Most of our ferry boats are 2 decks, but this one has 3 decks. And he made 3 other boats: the St. Clair,
let's go.
Canadiana, an Americana. And if
Get
you
to go
look at this boat
upstairs
on the
if you
center
want
deck,
to.
all the way from
Taste
the
the
staff on the middle of the ship, all the way to the
First
stern,
cow.
is the Great Lakes' largest ballroom dance floor, and still is today. 3 weeks ago, I was on that boat walking around, and the owner, Ian, says, stay in the middle and don't go to the sides. Well, two men in New York City wanted a boat to go up and down the Hudson River. They found this boat in Toledo, Ohio. It was in dry dock, wrapped up in plastic, and they almost gasped because you could see not looking very good. They took it to Toledo, Ohio. They had the whole section redone, so now it's seaworthy. They brought it to Buffalo, and Mr. Rick Smith is supposed to help reinforce the top of the decks. Hopefully, many people in Buffalo would like it to stay because it reminds us of our Canadiana, our Crystal Beach boat. Well, that boat has a nice little history to it. Like many organizations, it's hard to get grant money and stuff, but they found a way to get grant money from the National Park Society group. Because in 1945, in Detroit, Michigan, there was a group of gals that finished business school as secretaries. They were going to go to Pablo Island in Canada to celebrate their graduation. All the girls buy their tickets, 85 cents a piece. They go up to the ticket collector, hand their ticket in there. They got on a boat. This one girl goes up there, Sarah Elizabeth Ray. She hands her ticket in. The ticket collector says, I'm sorry, but you can't come on. You're colored. In our rules, we have no colored people on this boat. Well, she didn't cause a disturbance, but about 2-3 months later, NAACP and ACLU got involved, along with a young lawyer. And this case, discrimination case, went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And he won that case so much that the Columbia and the Pablo Corporation had to change their rules. Now, in 1948, there was a discrimination case in Kansas. Brown versus the Board of Education. Then this young lawyer is arguing that discrimination case again. He uses that Pablo